If you want to learn everything about the Spider-Man the animated series, be sure to watch the video. Well, hi there, Spider-Dash here. You know how this works. You ask for it and you will get it. You have been asking for an Iceberg about the 90's Spider-Man show. When you are a Spider-Man fan, it's really hard to ignore this show because of how, dare I say it, revolutionary it is, how it shaped the character of Spider-Man in many ways, and overall, how amazing the show is. That's why today I want to bring you the Iceberg about Spider-Man the animated series. Be sure to watch this video until the end so you know everything about this show. And before starting the video, give me a like, click the subscribe button and leave radioactive spider blood in the comment section if you love this show. Thank you so much for watching, and with that out of the way, let's begin! Tier 1. Clear Skies. John Semper Jr. John Semper Jr. is a screenwriter, producer, and story editor in shows like DuckTales, Scooby-Doo, and The Smurfs. The man is an absolute legend, and if you want to thank someone for this show being so amazing, you should thank him. He was producer and writer of this show. Spider-Verse. This was the first show to introduce the idea of the Spider-Verse, things that will become really common these days. Nevertheless, it is always great to see Spider-Man interacting with different versions of himself. Shared Universe. This cartoon also shares universe with different Marvel shows that were being aired at that time, mainly with the X-Men, Iron Man, and the Fantastic Four. They have cameos in the show. However, Spider-Man doesn't appear on any other show despite the other characters appearing here. However, Spider-Man has a small cameo in the X-Men. Censorship. There is the misconception that this show was heavily censored, although they had some rules that were ridiculous that we'll talk about in just a minute. Most of the show's decisions regarding censorship were made by John Semper, and if you watch this show, you'll notice that it isn't as censored as people like to believe. Series cancellation. The show was cancelled because of more than one reason. One was that the show faced a lot of budgetary issues. And finally, as you may already know, the last nail in the coffin was that Sony bought the Spider-Man rights. Stan Lee. One of the most memorable moments of this show is when Spider-Man finally meets Stan Lee, a moment that will make any fan cry these days. And not only that, but Stan Lee also worked really close to the team that was making this show, giving ideas and suggestions to improve the show and stay true to Spider-Man. Rest in peace, Stan Lee, we will never forget about you. You are our hero. Tier 2. The tip of the iceberg. Nicholas Hammond. Nicholas Hammond was the first actor to play Spider-Man in a movie that pretty much no one remembers. But for some reason, Stan Lee loved it. When Spider-Man the animated series was being made, Peter Parker had a look resembling the Peter Parker drawn by John Romita. But Stan Lee just parked into the offices and demanded the designers to change the look to a cooler Peter Parker, and suggested that they should draw Peter Parker like Nicholas Hammond. And the change was made. This upset John Semper at first, but he came into terms with it. Madame Web. Madame Web made her debut in The Amazing Spider-Man number 210, but her first debut in other media apart from the comics was here, and she was voiced by none other than Stan Lee's wife, Joanne Lee. Now this line has more sense.
That's Stan Lee, he's quite a guy.
I think he's truly special.
Well, man.
Spider-Man Unlimited. Spider-Man Unlimited is supposed to be a sequel to Spider-Man the animated series, but due to certain decisions, it doesn't make much sense. Little Mermaid. Christopher Daniel, who voices Prince Eric in The Little Mermaid, is the voice of Spider-Man in this show. The more you know. CGI. Originally, this show was going to be made entirely by CGI, like Star Wars The Clone Wars, but the technology was pretty limited by then. Even then, we got a Spider-Man cartoon made by CGI not too long after this one. Pigeons. Remember about the censorship rules? Well, there was one that was absolutely ridiculous, and that was that Spider-Man was not allowed to throw his web at pigeons. How was that even a rule? Who would have thought of doing that? Hobgoblin. In the comics and pretty much everywhere else, the Green Goblin exists before the Hobgoblin, but this show was an exception, the Hobgoblin appearing before the Green Goblin. So what happened? What is the reason that made the Hobgoblin appear before the Green Goblin? Well, it happens that before they even started to work on the show, the Hobgoblin figure was ready. And if the Hobgoblin didn't appear in the first episodes, they would have lost money because they needed to start selling the figure. Marvel Legends. Not too long ago, Hasbro made a line of Marvel Legends figures dedicated to the show from the 90s. Most of these figures are out of stock now, and probably will be kinda expensive. Tier 3. Below the surface. Secret Wars. The show has a loose adaptation of the comic Secret Wars, making a lot of changes from the original comic, but still, it is a great arc in the show nevertheless. Changes from comic. The show has a lot of changes from the original material, but the thing is that most of these changes became staples of Spider-Man. The symbiote coming from space to Earth instead of Spider-Man getting it in Secret Wars. The symbiote changing Spider-Man's mood and turning him violent. Dr. Octopus being mentor of Peter Parker. You name it. Something that you associate with Spider-Man probably happened here and not in the comics. Aerosmith. The lead guitarist of Aerosmith, Joe Perry, composed the theme of Spider-Man the Animated Series that we all know and love. And not only that, but in the 7th episode of the first season, after Peter acquires the symbiote, there is a reference to Joe Perry, when Peter mimics the clothes of a rock star. Avia Rat. Maybe you thought that Avia Rat just interfered with the Spider-Man movies, but it all began here. He was executive producer of this cartoon, and he had a say on what it was shown. He limited many times the writers and animators with ideas that they wanted to tell just to make stories and characters that would sell toys. As an example, we were really close of not having Madame Web in the show, because he thought that she wasn't going to sell any toys. The Insidious Six. Unlike every version of Spider-Man that has the Sinister Six, in this universe they are called the Insidious Six, because Sinister was too violent, so it was censored. The Joker. Another fun fact about voice acting. Mark Hamill, who is known as Luke Skywalker and the best voice of the Joker, also voiced the Hobgoblin in this show. Tier 4. The bottom of the iceberg. McDonald's. The first collaboration ever that Spider-Man and McDonald's did was in 1995 with Spider-Man the Animated Series. Each Happy Meal came with one of these toys. Even the bag where the burger and the toy came are considered collectibles these days. And they even did an awesome commercial.
Whoa, Spider-Man!
Sorry I can't hang around.
Because the action's at McDonald's. One with every Spider-Man Happy Meal you buy.
Cereal. This was the first time that Spider-Man had a collaboration with a cereal. It was in 1995, and again it was with Spider-Man the Animated Series. The brand responsible for this collaboration was Ralston Foods, and each cereal came with a special card, depicting Spider-Man and some of his foes from the cartoon. And again, they even made an awesome TV commercial. They don't do that sort of thing these days.
Spider-Man! Whoa! Spider-Man cereal! Cool!
New Spider-Man cereal. It's the action-packed part of your balanced breakfast.
Reference in No Way Home. After the scene of the three Spider-Man swinging together, Tobey's Spider-Man lands in a similar pose than the Spider-Man of the animated series. Gwen Stacy. The creators of the show had plans to put Gwen Stacy in the cartoon, but in the end she didn't appear because they didn't want to show her dead. although she has a small cameo. Black Cat. Unlike every version of Black Cat that doesn't have any real power other than a bad luck aura that affects everyone around her, in the animated series she was injected with the Super Soldier Serum, which is why she looks super muscular. Spider-Man the Animated Series video game. There are other ways that you can enjoy more content of this show. One is through the video game released for the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. This game shares a lot of things with Spider-Man PSX, like the old trusty spider armor. It is not a masterpiece, but it is incredibly fun. Tier 5. Shallow Waters. The Adventures of Spider-Man. The Adventures of Spider-Man is a series of tie-in comics that narrate stories that happened in the universe of the animated series but were not shown. They are amazing and have the same art style as the show. They are worth a read if you have some time to kill. Spider-Man Adventure Hero. Toy Biz made a lot of figures for Spider-Man the Animated Series, but by far the most peculiar ones are the Adventure Hero line. Do you want a lifeguard Spider-Man? What about an astronaut Spider-Man? How about a football player? Do you want a ninja Spider-Man? What if Spider-Man breaks bad? There are many of these, one for each situation. Maybe they're not all documented. It is kinda funny how far they went with this. Peter and MJ's wedding. According to the writers of the show, they never had plans of a wedding between Peter Parker and Mary Jane, because they believed that Spider-Man should suffer. Bruh. Yeah. Electro and Sandman. Something that almost no one noticed, because of how amazing the show is already, is the absence of both Electro and Sandman. They didn't appear because both were going to be villains in the now cancelled James Cameron's Spider-Man, so they couldn't use them. The movie was cancelled while the show was still being developed, so Electro does appear near the end of the show as the son of Red Skull. Super weird. And Sandman doesn't appear at all because pretty much Hydro Man has the same role that Sandman would had.
Hi, I'm Vimto Minto. I've been invited here by Spider Dash to read out a couple of entries from this iceberg. Now, you should subscribe to Spider Dash, he makes great videos, and if you like what you hear from me, then subscribe to my YouTube.
Yeah, sure, continue.
Tier 6, Dark Waters. Season 6. This entry refers to the plans that the show creators had for a potential Season 6 for the show before it was cancelled. It would involve Spider-Man trying to find MJ, and he would team up with Ghost Rider and fight Mephisto, who teams up with Doc Ock. The season would also involve the return of the Hobgoblin. Spider-Man Unlimited comics. This entry refers to the comics that were made for the Spider-Man Unlimited show, which is the sequel series to Spider-Man the Animated Series. They aren't connected that much, but they are a good read if you're a fan of both shows. 20th Anniversary Panel. On the 20th anniversary of Spider-Man the Animated Series, the show's crew got together at a panel and shared the memories that they had from working on the show. They also read from the script episodes from Season 6. If you want to watch the full thing, I'm sure there'll be a link to it in the description of this video. Daredevil the Animated Series. Marvel and Fox were creating an animated series based on Daredevil, who was introduced in the Spider-Man animated series, so they wouldn't have to introduce him again as he was already a known character. But unfortunately, the show was cancelled due to the poor reception of the Daredevil movie in 2003 starring Ben Affleck. So that's all from me from this iceberg, and before I pass things back over to Spider Dash, I just want to encourage you guys to subscribe to Spider Dash, and if you enjoyed what you heard from me, then I suggest that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Maybe there'll be a link in the description, I'm not sure. Anyway, bye bye.
Thanks Minto Mimto, it was a pleasure having you. Now, let's go to the final tier. Tier 7, The Abyss. Across the Spider-Verse. There are rumors that we could see the Spider-Man from the animated series in the upcoming movie Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If you're from the future, leave in the comments if this is true. Unused intro. There is an alternate version of the intro that we know. It isn't that different, but still it is worth mentioning. If you want to see it, I'll leave a link in the description. Hong Kong. Out of all the places that Spider-Man the animated series was aired, it was banned in one of them, and that is Hong Kong. It is unknown why the show was banned there. Jack the Ripper. Another idea for the now cancelled 6th season was to have Spider-Man time traveling to Victorian England, where he would have found MJ and fucked Jack the Ripper, who would have been none other than Carnage. Spider-Man Safety Series. This is not entirely related to the animated series, but it was done around the same time, so here we go. In 1990, the Learning Corporation of America released Spider-Man educational tapes. You know this, the clips telling kids to not do drugs and behave well. There are supposed to be 4 tapes, but we only have one, uploaded by YouTube user Mindless Shelf Indulgence. The beat itself has a relatively good quality, but the message is questionable. This kid named Maria is being abused by her father, and Spider-Man, instead of helping, he just stares through the window. Yeah, if you want to see it, I'll leave a link in the description. Well, you stayed until the end. A shout out to Minto Mimto for helping me in this video. If you want a shout out in the next video, give me a like, be sure to click the subscribe button and leave radioactive spider blood in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching and bye bye!